take a little bit of time and talk about tables. Something that you probably have in your house, that flat surface with 4 supporting beams. It's got chairs that surround it. Growing up, I bet you did your homework around the table. I bet as you had birthday parties, you brought the cake and sat it at the table and sang happy birthday. I'm sure you celebrated holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas surrounding a table. And I'm sure that you have many other memories that involve tables, meals, friends, and family. And it's interesting as we look into our Bible that tables also appear. For instance, just looking at one of our famous Psalms from King David, Psalm 23, the Psalm that begins, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Verse 5 of that same Psalm states this: "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows." It's an interesting depiction that David puts in there, that God would prepare a table for us in the presence of our enemies. Have you ever shared a meal with your enemy? Have you ever shared a meal consistently with your enemy? What do you think would happen to the relationship that you have with that person if you were to break bread with them once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? My thoughts are that the things that separate you two would begin to dissolve, and the things that bring you together, a friendship would begin to be born. Throughout our Bible, we can see tables and meals and food used as places where healing can begin, places where understanding can be formed, and friendships can begin. Going further into our Bible, into the book of Leviticus, we find lots of laws, lots of rules, and lots of rituals. But it's interesting, in Leviticus 7, we are told of a specific type of offering that doesn't necessarily involve tables, but involves a meal. This offering is called a peace offering. And what you do is you bring your offering to the tabernacle. And when you sacrifice and you do your offering there, as you walk away, you are said to have peace with God. The second thing about this offering is what you bring to the tabernacle, what you sacrifice, must be eaten the day that it is brought. So as you bring your food and as you sacrifice it, before you go home, before you know that you have peace, you are supposed to eat it at the tabernacle, which is said to be the place where God's presence resides. What is it called whenever 2 people are in a place and they are eating together? We call that a meal in America, don't we? It's interesting how in Leviticus 7, God doesn't just require laws and rituals and sacrifices, but God is looking for a meal with us. He's looking for a relationship. He's looking for an experience that we can share together where we can walk away knowing we have peace. As I think about Leviticus 7, I'm reminded of communion and how Jesus breaks bread around the table with his disciples. As we think about meals, let's also think about where they come from. In the Old Testament book of Ruth, Ruth is a widow, and she is left to scavenge what's left over of the fields. Now in Deuteronomy, a good Israelite is instructed to leave the corners of their field unharvested. That way the poor, the widow, and the oppressed can go in there and get some food, get some substance for themselves. Now in the book of Ruth, Ruth finds herself among these people, poor, widowed. She is at Boaz's field, gathering what she can around the corners, when along comes Boaz, the landowner. And rather than chastising these poor folks, these widows, Boaz makes sure that they have enough. Boaz checks and makes sure that they know where good water is. Boaz has his men nearby to make sure that nobody messes or harms these people. It's interesting, then, how Boaz will marry Ruth, take her into his household. Meals, tables, and food have an interesting way of healing, building, and bringing what God is doing in this world to life. Last story, growing up, there was a family, a single mom who was paralyzed that worked with my father. And once a year, we would invite this single mom and her 2 kids to our house to play video games, to sit around a table and have a Thanksgiving meal. Now, this family lived far away from us, so we didn't see them regularly. We just saw them once a year, and we had a great time. There was love, there was warmth, and there was laughter. One year, it wasn't Thanksgiving, but it was a Sunday. There was a knock on our door early in the morning, and it was the two children of Miss Belinda. They told us that their mother had died in the night, and they didn't know where else to go. They had no other friends, no other family nearby, but our house was a safe place to them, so that is where they came. And as I reflected on that experience, the only time we had ever spent with this family was one day a year, around a table. And it brought me a lot of comfort and joy to know that that table was so loving and so opening and so accepting that even though they only spent one day a year there, they knew they could go back there, that God's love lived around that table, that they could experience mercy and grace if they went back to that table. Who is your table open to? And how can that be used to bless others for the kingdom of God? Furthermore, who are you closing your table off to? And how can opening that maybe cause something new to start growing, something from heaven to begin flourishing right here on earth? Grace and peace.